Hello, I'm Ron Baker, and I am so glad that we have this chance to explore today. I want to talk about a subject that has been so tender in many people's lives, and that is being concerned about how others see us. Why in the world are we typically so concerned about that? How does this become so important and distorted in our lives? Why does it rule people's lives throughout adulthood? I hope to offer some perspectives today that will leave you with more peace and more ease and more trust, with an encouragement that it is ultimately how you see yourself that matters the most. So let's put some pieces together and understand this a little more fully. Where do we look in order to understand why this has been so important in so many of our lives? Let's go all the way back to childhood. In the first years of our lives, the main part of the brain that is functioning is the limbic brain. This is the feeling survival brain. It is also an egocentric brain. This is the brain that is intended to function when you're young, when mommy and daddy are nurturing us and acknowledging us and teaching us and valuing us. And this brain personalizes everything that's taking place. How does everything impact me? This teaches us, there's a me. And the reflection that we need comes from nurturing and valuing by mommy and daddy or whoever our caregivers happen to be, nurturing us so that we personalize, I matter. This is the seed that is intended for a healthy life. If we're taught that we matter, then we eventually learn to take over the job ourselves of acknowledging self and valuing self and nurturing self. Just like initially, mom and dad teach us what we should wear each day. They go and pick out our clothes and put it on the bed or even dress us. Eventually, we learn to do that for ourselves. We could apply this to any subject. We're intended to initially receive it, and then as we're ready, we take over and we become empowered, autonomous, capable individuals. The problem is, if we don't get that nurturing and value at the beginning, if there's not tons of acknowledgement and then encouragement in order for us to become individuals, then we become frozen in that first stage. We become frozen looking outside us, hoping that someone will validate that we matter. The problem is, whatever the initial experiences were that you had with mommy and daddy, when they didn't know how to love every single facet of your being, when they didn't know how to champion your individuality, we personalized all that. And therefore, we internalized. Believe me, I am certainly in that group and how I grew up. We internalize a wounded message. They didn't even necessarily mean to pass on a limited message to us, but we personalize and we project what the limitations mean. And if I'm personalizing it, I'm going to make it about me. If I'm not in the flow of nurturing and value and acknowledgement and all kinds of invested time and energy, then I interpret that in some version of, I don't matter. My feelings are unlovable. My needs are unimportant. Various messages. And it leaves us frozen outside the self, worrying so much about what others think of us. The challenge is, we don't know exactly what someone else thinks of us, and we're going to project what's already decided in the brain, in the storage system of this is the description that I've already internalized about myself. And then I'm going to scan for it and I'm going to look for it. Oh, it seems like that person is seeing me how I expect to be seen. This is huge. We look for affirmation of whatever we decide when we are 5, 6, and 7 years old. It really is programmed all the way back to those early primitive stages of our lives. So if you spend time just evaluating, instead of already having decided, just evaluating today. How do I feel about me today? How do I feel about the choices I'm making? If I discover there are some choices I'm making that I don't feel great about, the power is in your hands to make an adjustment, to begin making choices that you do feel great about. If on top of that, you start to look for the things on purpose that you do value about yourself, you begin to give yourself what you wish mommy and daddy had known how to give you, or you enhance the parts that they did know how to do in acknowledging your sacredness as an individual. We are profound, sacred individuals having tons of variations of lessons, but what we all share is the need for certain nurturing, acknowledgement, guidance, and investment in those early years to plant seeds that I matter, you matter. To plant seeds that say every facet of who you are is an important part of your individuality. If I'm a healthy caregiver, then I'm going to guide it so that it sets you up well. And I'm going to teach you and encourage you how to trust how you feel about you. This is the healthy alternative that is going to be practiced and built and trusted more and more only when you decide to give that to yourself. So to understand the reason that so many people are concerned about how others see us is because we have been frozen in that initial stage, fearful that we won't be loved, we won't be accepted, we won't be included, that we'll have to experience rejection, shame, any kind of negative reaction. Now, let's add some perspectives to that. Someone needs to see you according to what they're negotiating in a moment. I'm going to use an example. When my clients come and are working through various things, working through various issues, they're going to see me according to what they're celebrating and according to what they're resisting and fighting. If I happen to be the person in front of them when they are in the fight and struggle with something, then they're going to see me in that wounded learning curve. So I often will say to them when they're negotiating this very issue, how others see them, I say, well, do you see anyone the same way all the time? Or do you discover, oh, I love this person, and yet sometimes that person triggers something in you that you're fighting and struggling, and you project something else at the other person? This is the deal. As long as I have wounding, as long as I have distortions, as long as I don't know how to love and value myself, I'm going to be in the wounded negotiation of those things. I'm going to be in blame and shame. I'm going to be in fight and struggle. Know that these are actually important pieces of the learning curve. If you truly want to be free, bring the focus back to yourself and say, what is this situation teaching me about me? It's showing me where I know how to love, where I know how to value, and where I don't. It's going to teach me what relationship I'm having to myself. Now, if I'm in a fight and struggle, that might get projected out. Or if you're in a fight and struggle, it might get projected out. But it really boils down to you learning how to love and value yourself. When you do, and when you allow yourself to have a wounded learning curve, then you get on with freeing yourself from being so concerned about how others see you. And when you realize that you're in that worry, you can bring the power back to yourself. How do I see me? Do I judge myself about that? Do I enjoy that I make those kinds of choices? Do I feel good about me? Where we don't, we can make adjustments so that we make the choices that we feel better and better about. We can purposefully look for the things that we do appreciate and value about ourselves, and we can get on with understanding that most of it boils down to what I've decided about myself in that limbic brain. And we can move to a more evolved place in the heart with the logic that says, let me reevaluate. Let me do it from a perspective of compassion. Let me do it from a perspective of understanding that we all have a learning curve. Let me understand that any time I'm having a challenge in the way I'm seeing someone else or myself, there are tools, there are things that we can do to make it freer, more peaceful, and to make a nurtured difference in our own lives so that how we feel about ourselves becomes the most important thing. That's what I want to share for today. This couldn't be more important. If you have questions, please reach out. Please write to me either at ronbaker.net or at the Facebook group Empowered at Last with Ron Baker. I would love to hear from you. I would love to deepen this conversation so that we can get on with setting ourselves up well, treating ourselves well, and that's the lesson for today. So practice all week, bringing the focus back to you. How do I see myself? What adjustments will set me up better? Have a great week. I will see you soon. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Before we close, I wanted to encourage a couple of things. Number one is to go to ronbaker.net. There you will find lots of clues for how you can deepen this conversation. You can also find a way to get the booklet, An Essential Guide to the 9 Nurturing Needs. This is going to be a core focus of how we're going to enhance the quality of your life from the inside out in all the episodes. So I encourage you to go there to get an overview of those 9 nurturing experiences that we all seek more than any other thing in our lives. I also want you to get involved in the conversation here. I really would like to talk about the things that are important to you, the things that you're concerned about or excited about. We live in a wacky world that is changing constantly. We need to learn to connect to ourselves, to count on ourselves, and to count on one another. So please either get involved at ronbaker.net or in the Facebook page, which is Empowered at Last with Ron Baker. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to deepening this conversation about life. And I close as always, choose well, live fully, and by all means, be good to you. Have a great week.